It's been a huge year for the Puppet community, and we've seen some awesome growth in a number of different areas, growth that in a large part you're all responsible for. Our community this year really has exploded, over 80,000 users now, all over the world. Puppet is number 6 on Indeed.com's job trends. We've had over 1.2 million modules downloaded from the Puppet Forge. There's over 1,000 modules there, all reusable infrastructure that you've helped write and you're handing over to others to get started with their own infrastructure. We've had twice as many Puppet camps this year as we did last year. And our annual conference, PuppetConf, has more than doubled in size, just like Puppet Labs itself. Puppet's now automating more platforms than ever before, from Linux to Windows, Solaris, AIX, but more than just compute, to network and storage devices as well. We've added a bunch of great new strategic partnerships that have really added a whole lot of momentum to our ecosystem. Some of the largest cloud software as a service companies in the world are using Puppet. Puppet powers large and important chunks of their infrastructure. We're thrilled to have so many high-profile speakers taking part in our community and taking part here at PuppetConf.
So Cisco WebEx is the largest collaboration software as a service, and we rely on Puppet to really be our backend for managing the configuration of the entire fleet of servers. Probably the biggest thing it gave me as an architect was I didn't have to worry anymore. I didn't worry about the state of those systems out there. I trusted that Puppet was going to maintain the state of them, and it did it reliably.
So GitHub is the #1 source control repository in the world, and we've grown exponentially over the last 5 years. That's only helped by Puppet allowing us to scale quickly and rapidly and easily. So GitHub uses Puppet in order to deploy to multiple clouds and multiple data centers. It allows much flexibility with server types, hardware types, all within the same code base.
So I've typically seen the times for deployment go from several weeks down to a few hours. When I started, we had about 400 or 500 instances, and in the last 2-3 months, we've already gone to 1,000. And probably, in the next 6 months, that could double again. And because it's getting easier, the requests for more instances just keep coming. So I don't see any end to that.
We wish you all a great PuppetConf as we explore how Puppet Enterprise can help you collaborate, automate, and ship.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to PuppetConf 2013. Please welcome the original author of Puppet and the founder and CEO of Puppet Labs, Luke Kanies.
Welcome to PuppetConf. I'm sorry we couldn't get you a nicer hotel, but I'm not exaggerating. This is literally the nicest thing that San Francisco has to offer. Actually, don't ever expect this again. I don't think we're ever going to have it this good again. So we are going to do a Q&A at the end. I wanted to make sure we have at least a little chance for you guys to throw hard or preferably very, very simple and self-affirming questions at me. So if you go to this site, you'll see a Google Moderator link where you can input questions and or vote up or down your neighbor's question. So we'll have about 10 minutes for that at the end. So I think right now is a very interesting time. We're seeing massive investments in infrastructure, greater than we've seen since the late 90s. And I think enterprise is moving faster than before. Over the last 10 years or so, Enterprises have got very good at investing in infrastructure, but generally investing in a way that slows them down. You just saw some of our customers talk about trying to get some of the speed back into their infrastructure. I think it's also a very strange time. We've all seen the press over the last 5 years talking about cloud, 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 and how it's disrupting everything and everybody. But who is it actually disrupting? Who is it actually changing? William Gibson said the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed. You can look around and you can see companies like Netflix and Google and Amazon who are absolutely at one cutting edge of the market, but not many people look like that. The vast majority of people look nothing like that. And if you look in the market and you see what things like SaaS are doing, which are building many, many great billion-dollar companies, and then infrastructure as a service where there's kind of like just that one, and then platform as a service, which is a really interesting idea, if only anyone could actually use it to do anything useful and interesting. So there's lots happening, but nothing is what everyone told us would happen, and it's not happening nearly as quickly as the story of what would happen. So I think we're at this really interesting intersection between innovation and production, where there's a lot of interesting things happening, there's a lot of change going on, but you still have to do it all yourself, right? If you find something cool, if you find something great, if you find some great opportunity, you can go do it, but like you have to do it. You have to figure it out. And so what that means for most people is it's actually too difficult for them to do it. We have customers who are having trouble with Puppet not because it's too hard or because they don't have the need for it, but because you just can't get the people. They can't make the cultural change they need to make to get the benefits they want. What that means is everyone in this room is weird, right? I know that you all think you're normal. The sysadmins, right? We're the ones who define normal and everyone else is weird. But you're different because you recognize the problem, but you recognize that you shouldn't actually build it yourself. You shouldn't go out and spend the next 3 years building some hand-rolled, one-off system that no one else gets to use and no one else can maintain, built primarily with shell scripts and bubblegum, and instead want a shared product. And you recognize the value of having a large group of people who can work on it with you together. And these people with these same problems and the same goals, obviously that's what this conference is all about, right? We're here to talk about the goals of what we're trying to do, why we're trying to do automation, the problems that we're all having, either that automation is hoping to solve for us, or frankly that we're having in building our automation, and the technology that we're using to solve the problems. And then of course, we're here to build a stronger community. And the goal of that overall is to move the industry, right? We look back 10 years, 5 years, we look forward 5 years, we fully expect the world to look pretty different in 5 years. It certainly already looks very different than it did 5 years ago. And you've all been part of making that happen. PuppetConf is a great place to learn. Raise your hand if you were at one of the training events this week. We had about 150, maybe 200 people trained just this week at PuppetConf. We've trained more than 1,700 people this year. We've got demos going all around through the whole event, so you can go and try out the products we've already built, try out the products that are in the midst of building. You can be involved in a test pilot for one of the products we're building today, and help us understand what your biggest problems are. What are the parts of our product that work great for you? What are the parts that you never touch? What are the parts that, man, if only we did this one thing, it would be completely awesome. We want to understand those about what you're using the products for. It's also a great time to share. This conference could not happen without you. If you look around the speaker list, notice that the vast majority of the speakers are not Puppet Labs employees. They're people who are sitting in the audience. They're people, well, many of them are sitting in the speaker ready room right now waiting to talk. But they're here to talk to you, right? They're here to share their stories of what worked, what didn't work, what crazy thing they did, what crazy thing they tried, how well it worked, or just many different stories about different technology, different interesting things. Last year, the major complaint about PuppetConf was that there wasn't nearly enough time to see all the great talks. We had too many good talks all at the same time. This year, we decided to make it dramatically worse. Fortunately, it's being live streamed. That doesn't help any of you. You are not allowed to live stream one talk from within another talk. We made sure the Wi-Fi is just good enough to do email and no better. Don't quote me on that. But you will be able to, we will post all the videos again, just like we did last year. They'll come up. It does take a long time to process this many great talks, but you will be able to see them all. So focus on the ones you want to see most live, and then you can see the rest later. It's also a great time to connect. There are people from all over the world here. And for many of you, this is your first conference, but for many of you, you've been to many before. So who's here right now? Seriously, you all have to raise your hands. I'm not kidding. Oh yeah, this is a participatory event, exactly. I see one in the back with you. No, keep your hands up, we're not done. All right, who's been to a Puppet event before this? Keep your hands up. All right, who's been to PuppetConf before this? What about an event outside the US? Fantastic. All right, who is using Puppet right now? No, literally, are you? No. What about last year? 2011? 12? Oh, sorry, wait, that's the wrong direction. 2010? 9? 8? 7? 6? Is that the last one? Oh, there's one over there. 2005? All right. Awesome. So as Nigel said, you've all been very busy this year too. You downloaded our products 9 million times off our website in the last 12 months. We've had 1.2 million Forge downloads, which is a huge investment on everybody's part. I mean, these are modules that you're building, that you're sharing. And you've now published 1,400 modules to the Forge. And the work that's been done in the community, again, it's not work that's done by us. We're just trying to sit here and swirl the pot and hope awesome things happen. It's a lot of the community members have done amazing things to make the community continue to work. Eric Deline has done great work with Puppet at Spotify, and he's submitted a lot of great pull requests to improve Puppet and our other products. Aaron Stone has taken over the Puppet dashboard and has done a great job of improving it. Chris Boitart helped to co-organize PuppetCamp in Ghent, and he's also been a big part of just getting sysadmin and DevOps events working in Belgium and really all over Europe. Greg Baker has answered more than 60 questions on ask.puppetlabs.com in the last 6 months, and he's also contributed to projects like R10K, which is a Puppet environment and module deployment tool. And he's also shown great decision-making, like a sysadmin has to have, because instead of being at PuppetConf this week, he's on his honeymoon. Dustin Mitchell has made many, many, many contributions to Puppet. Odds are, if I get a comment on a ticket that I'm subscribed to in the Puppet database, in general, it's about 50% of the time, he's one of the ones making the comment. He's also been doing a lot of great work with Puppet at Mozilla. We've also been busy. We've been working hard. You saw Nigel mention that Puppet is a significant part of powering a huge number of the great SaaS companies out there. Talking about moving quickly, talking about things that are changing the market. These companies are rewiring and rewriting how people use the internet, how people use their technology, and a big part of how they deliver that is using Puppet. We've got customers of every size and every vertical, solving every kind of problem. And I think my favorite thing about our customer list is not the wide variety or the fact that they pay us, which is one of my favorite things. It's all the different stories of adoption. When I talk to people about Puppet, everyone says, well, what's the use case? What's the one? What's the thing? And there is no thing. There are 10,000 different things. There are 10,000 different reasons why somebody starts using Puppet. What's the small problem that kind of pushed you downhill and pushed you to say, let's go invest, let's go spend a week, let's go take the weekend and hack on it. And that little hacking, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, 2 years later, turns into all these companies doing massive work with Puppet. You might have seen that Inc. magazine announced this week that they were the 120th fastest growing company on their Inc. 500 list, which is pretty awesome. And the magazine says 121st. Apparently, somebody got disqualified for doping or something. I'm not entirely sure what happened there. I'm sure you saw that VMware invested very heavily in Puppet Labs. They're a critical partner, and they're now a major investor. I think everybody we talk to, every customer we talk to is not just using virtualization, they're using VMware absolutely everywhere. And virtualization brings with it all these great benefits, and this is the reason why it's everywhere, right? But at the same time, it brings with it these interesting and new problems. It's great if you can spin up 1,000 machines in 5 minutes, but if it still takes you 6 months to make them do anything useful, you're kind of not getting the value from it. So combining VMware's virtualization with Puppet Enterprise has allowed our respective customers to move that much faster, to get that much more done in that much less time. But we're still a company completely focused on heterogeneous infrastructure. We're not a VMware company. We're not an OpenStack company. We're not an Amazon AWS company. You're going to see Google here talking about their compute engine. We're a critical part of all of these infrastructures, and they're a critical part of our success. We know that our customers, they just have stupid computers they want to make work. And our job is to do what we can to help with that. In fact, it's not just about computers anymore, right? We're doing a great job of managing Cisco devices, Juniper devices. Both these companies have announced support for running Puppet on their devices and treating them like you would any other compute system. So it's not just about the compute devices. We're also managing F5 load balancers, working with NetApp. So it really is about managing the entire infrastructure. And speaking of work, a lot of that device work was originally done by Brice Figueroa, who's been a critical community member for a long time. And he's was able to make it this year from France, which is excellent. So all this different support for these different environments is about building an ecosystem around Puppet Enterprise. You've already seen this year, we've done a good job of freeing up the open source project to move faster, break things a little bit more, be a little bit more innovative. We've been releasing the open source projects with switches that turn new functionality on and off. And we have to be able to release that new functionality without making 2-year support promises. So at the same time, Puppet Enterprise is about building a wider ecosystem so we can say, look, if it works today, it'll work next year, it'll work in 2 years. We can make these promises, and these promises bring stability. We can go to a partner like Cisco and say, if you make this integration right now, the integration will still work. You can go to your customers and you can make promises. It's not just about the technology, though. It's about support. It's about the training. It's about all the integrations that you're seeing. It's about certified modules that don't just work, but they work on this specific switch with this specific version of these specific products. And it's about best practices. Okay, what's the right way to do it? Well, hopefully a lot of those best practices are built into the product for you. But for the ones that aren't, how much work does it take to import that best practice into your world? And then, of course, there are a lot of interesting and great new products to build on top of Puppet Enterprise. And you've already seen the opportunity to interact with some of those. All this new kind of work, all these new kinds of tools are leading to what many of our customers are seeing as a new kind of administrator. It used to be that an admin was somebody who was a technical specialist. There was this one piece of technology that you knew better than anybody else. And most admins, there's some special kind of bridge you get to live under. And they keep you very far away from normal people. But what we're seeing is tools like Puppet are giving you the power to step up a level and abstract away the specifics of the technology and begin to focus much more on what the business goals of the problem are, what the business goals of the solution are. And it's kind of switching from vertical silos to horizontal abstractions. Like I said, it's a really interesting time, but we're not done yet. We think automation can be much, much easier. We think you can change faster than you can today. I don't care how fast you're moving today. I bet there's some rate-limiting step, there's something that you would like to be able to move more quickly. We must level up from technology to applications. It's not enough to talk about the individual pieces of technology. No one buys computers to own computers. No one buys web servers because they need web servers, right? You need to provide services to your customers. And all of this technology is a means to an end. So we have to figure out how to focus on that end through our entire technology stack. And we have to turn all these really interesting existence proofs that community members and customers and partners are doing around the world, we have to turn them into a product that we can all make long-term promises about. And the whole community has to get much better about doing less repetition. My guess is almost everyone who starts using Puppet, you're building a module, there are 10 other modules out there like that, but it's not quite reusable enough, or it's too hard to find, or it's too hard to use in your environment, or didn't have quite the right switch. The vast majority of customers I talk to, they have two major problems. Agility, I want to be able to move more quickly, and I want my company culture to change. So the culture of DevOps, the culture of aligning your development teams, your application teams, your operations teams, all in a common goal, that culture change needs to spread faster. Shockingly, this is kind of what we're working on. This is the Puppet Labs product strategy. No, we're not, unfortunately, actually building spaceships. That's the next company. I call this the Xwing Strategy because it defines kind of the efforts, the directions we're moving from where we are. Step one is about making the core better. You've already seen a lot of work we've done this year. We closed the Cloudsmith acquisition, which brought with it Geppetto, which is a fantastic IDE for developing Puppet code. We launched a great online learning product just a couple of weeks ago where you can go learn in much shorter increments. You don't have to travel anywhere. You've seen increases in performance, stability. We're working on cleaner documented APIs. And a lot of this came out in Puppet Enterprise 3. Then we're going horizontal out to the wings. We're taking the technology we have, we're taking the abilities we have to work on all these different platforms and really building it into the product. And then again, moving up the stack. where the guy sits, I think. Building towards things like continuous delivery of your applications, not just your infrastructure, not just the pieces of technology. And that has to include technologies like cross-node dependencies. You have to be able to build not just the services, but the services have to know about each other. They have to work in tandem. And the fuel for this entire system is content. If you've been tracking the Puppet Labs modules on the Forge, you've seen them get better and better. We've already dramatically reduced the list of pull requests out there. We're going out, and in the very near future, we're going to be able to commercially support every module that's listed under the Puppet Labs account. And we're also fixing the whole chain to make use and contribution of modules dramatically easier. And on that note, we have one more thing. I want to have Joe Wagner, who's an interaction designer with Puppet Labs, come out and do a quick demo.
Thank you, Luke.
And I move my water.
Okay, thanks. Well, thank you all. I'm very excited to be up here today because I have an opportunity today to preview a new edition of Puppet Enterprise that we're going to be announcing soon. This new edition is a reporting tool that's designed to give you insight into how well Puppet is configuring your system. So I'm going to give you a scenario. So imagine that you are...
Just to be clear, I told Joe yesterday he was going to do this.
Thanks.
So...
Yeah.
I'm here to help.
You also told me there'd only be about 20 people here, so this is a little shocking.
Puppet Labs people are very gullible.
So let's say that you're a sysadmin and you're in the process of converting your environment over from Debian to Red Hat. And this group of servers runs MongoDB. Now, you've already replaced 5 of these machines with Red Hat machines. And at this point, you want to make sure that MongoDB is going to deploy and run on these servers. So let's go ahead and take a look at Event Inspector. So I open up Event Inspector in Puppet Enterprise, and immediately in this summary view over on the left, I get a broad perspective into my infrastructure that's organized by classes, nodes, and resources. Now, in looking at this, I immediately see that there's something wrong, right? So I see that there's one class with failures. I see that there are 5 nodes with failures. I see that there are 2 failing resources down here. Now, of course, I'm curious what those classes, nodes, and resources are. So I can see that this class that's failing is MongoDB. And my 5 nodes with failures, I can see from the host name that these are my Red Hat nodes. So clearly there is an issue with MongoDB on my Red Hat servers. So let's go ahead and take a look at these resources. And so I see I have an exec resource that is failing on 3 nodes. I have a package failing on 2. So at this point, I could go into my class or my 5 nodes or my resources and dig in for more detail. I'm already here, and I'm really curious about this exec resource. So I'm going to dig in to this with a click. And so I can see that this exec resource has actually successfully changed on a number of nodes. Now, if I actually group my events by failure, I'm able to see the 3 failures, the 3 nodes that it failed on. Now, you'll notice in this left pane, I have all my failed resources. So if I want to, I can quickly toggle with a single click over to my package to take a look at that. But I'm still curious why this exec is failing on these nodes. So I'm going to take a look at this first node right here. OK. So one thing that's immediately apparent to me when I look at this event message down here is that I have an apt get call. And that's not going to be present on my Red Hat servers.
We hope.
And so this immediately clues me into the fact that there's something that my MongoDB module was written for Debian, but not for Red Hat, right? So at this point, I know what's going on this node. I do want to quickly check these other 2 nodes. And I can tell that really it's the same information. So I have the same issue that's going on all 3 nodes. So at this point, I already know what's going on. And I know that I need to either modify my module so that so it can support Red Hat, or I could also go to the Puppet Forge, and I could download another module that's cross-platform that's going to work with Red Hat. So that's a quick demo, but as you can see with Puppet Enterprise's Event Inspector, that nothing is more than a couple clicks away, and that the classes, nodes, and resources views work together to give you insight into how well Puppet is configuring your system. This demo is going to be running all day today, all day tomorrow in the Circ room. So I really encourage you to come sit down. You can actually test drive it yourself and take a look. So thanks.
Thank you very much, Joe. Super excited. So, as Joe said, we're running this demo for the next couple of days. We need your help. We need you to come try the product out, tell us what sucks, tell us where we could improve, tell us where we missed something obvious, tell us how this nearly solved your biggest problem, or preferably how it's exactly perfect and we should ship it tomorrow, which Joe said we will absolutely not do. And now we have some time for questions, the obligatory picture of my children who just keep getting bigger and bigger. So hopefully you've all had a chance to go visit the link. Here's your last opportunity to either write it down or just enter it into your phone or whatever, and we will switch to questions. I believe we also have either some mics set up on the side or some people who will be running around trying to give you access to the mics. No sound in streaming is the only question. This implies I get to leave very soon. We were wondering if the moderator thing would work, and I think the answer to that question is no. It would not work. So, I hope that many of you still have questions, though, because we do have mics. We're going to have to bring the lights up a little bit, though, so people can find both hands and mics. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. And you are required to have questions. Come on, seriously? Oh. There we go. When I started this years ago, did I ever imagine that it would get this big? I was very, very good when I started this about not thinking very far ahead. I think my board can all attest to that. I knew how big the problem was. I knew how big the opportunity was in the sense of I was a consultant at the time, and so I knew in going around and talking to customers how many companies were how far away from having a functional, quality operational system. And this was about in 2005 after people had gone through a long era of outsourcing their IT because they thought, well, the only dial I have, the only measure I have of IT is how much it costs. So I'm just going to find somebody who can make that as cheap as possible. It's not the best plan, and in 2005 it was becoming clear. So a lot of organizations they needed a lot of help. So it's not so much that I thought we could get this big, but I knew that somebody needed to get this big. Somebody needed to solve problems at a very large scale. So I'm not going to say that I predicted that I would get anywhere near this, but it's certainly been a good ride. Any plans to introduce more granular role-based access controls in PE? Absolutely, this is one of the things we get a lot of requests about. A lot of people are interested in tighter RBAC. It also happens to be fantastically hard, and once you get below the level of, yes, we all agree on RBAC, and you start to ask questions like, well, what do you mean by RBAC, and what specifically are you looking for? You start to get into a lot more complicated world where people, the apparent agreement that we all need RBAC starts to turn into a much more warlike conversation about exactly what RBAC is and how it works. So we are working on it. We are talking to people right now about what's the right thing to build, what's the best thing to build, and what's something we can actually ship in something less than, say, 5 years. So we are working on it, but there's nothing I can promise at this point. Will the new reporting tool be available in the non-enterprise version? No. The new reporting tool is it's all based on the data that's in PuppetDB. So it is built on the open source technology, but the reporting itself is still a commercial product. Let's see. Are there any plans to add a clustered environment allowing multiple masters? Absolutely. I talked earlier about one of our major goals being to increase the ease of use of the product, increase the simplicity. And some of that is just first user ease of use, right? To go, how quickly can you go from, I've heard of this Puppet thing, to I'm using it in production. But there's also I'm using it in production, and now I want to double the number of machines I have, or I want to add a data center in Europe, or things like that. That kind of scalability is just as important, that kind of ease of use. And we've got some really interesting demos we built internally about how we might go from, I've got one functional system to I've got many, many functional systems. We had our first ever customer advisory board yesterday where we walked through a lot of those ideas. Again, I don't have a timeline for when we're going to release those, but this is a major area we're investing effort right now. What can we as community members do to support Puppet's future and Puppet Labs' future? Frankly, it's doing exactly what you're doing right now. It's about participation. And there's so many different ways to participate in the community. But a huge part of it is everyone I talk to, everywhere I go, they say roughly the same thing. Your project has the nicest, most helpful community we've ever seen. And then again, you guys are the sysadmins, right? We're not supposed to be the nice ones. We're supposed to be surly. And, you know, you can't join our club, things like that. And it turns out that you've managed to build an incredibly nice, incredibly helpful community. And that's the number one most important thing. Because the way you convince people, everything is hard the first time, right? So when people show up and they want to know, hey, how do I get this Puppet thing started? The best thing to not do is to say, oh, you're not already an expert, I'm not going to help you, right? And we've been so welcoming of new community members. It's unbelievable. So if you only picked one thing, it would be continue to do that, right? Reach out, begin answering a few questions. Make sure the community is still doing a great job of being welcoming to new people. Our ability to add new people to our community is literally directly correlated to our ability to get out and solve the larger problems, to get out and work with the many, many more organizations. If you can't add new companies, if you can't add new people, the community just, I mean, somewhat obviously can't grow. But the way that you do that is not by doing one-upsmanship. It's not by talking about, you know, talking down to people who don't know it all yet. It's about working hard to be welcoming to absolutely everybody. And that's been a principle and a value in the Puppet community since we started, and I think it's been great, so I would keep up with that. The second thing is publish. And some of it's, you know, run a local Puppet user group and get people talking about what they're doing, right? It's all about connecting with the people around you who are also suffering the same problems. And it's not always Puppet, right? It's not always just about Puppet. It's about the problem. It's about the goals. It's about, okay, well, I had this issue. How did you have that issue? And there are a bunch of related issues, related questions, related technologies that people who are interested in Puppet are also going to be interested in. So build an environment for people to talk about those. Publish the work that you've done. Either don't talk to your lawyers or somehow convince them to let you publish your Puppet modules. Or even better, go find somebody else's Puppet modules and submit pull requests to make them work for you too. Take them and make them better. Improve the quality of what's out there right now. Work hard not to repeat yourself. And then, you know, many other things like that. How's this working out on the voting up and down? Do I have advice for distributed environments? Cross-data center dependencies are lame, and PuppetDB loses some usefulness when reporting data isn't globally aggregated. I don't have a lot of advice. This is a hard problem, right? I think the very next talk by a Google SRE is, why did we think distributed applications were going to be simple? It's fundamentally hard. We know that there are problems that Puppet does a very good job of fixing right now, and there are problems that Puppet does not do a very good job of fixing right now. And one of those areas is the more distributed you get, the larger scale you get, the harder it gets to not just solve the problem. And we think in these cases, the problems are solvable, but it's not like click to compute in that sense, right? You have to work hard. You have to bring services people in to help. You have to spend 6 months figuring it out. Our goal is to make even those hard problems not hard, but you know, and the things we're doing today that are easy now, they were not easy 2 years ago. And hopefully soon the cross-data center, cross-world distributed systems will be easy, but today it's still relatively hard. Are there any plans to launch hosted Puppet? This is something that we're very interested in. Startups, Scott Johnson likes to say that more startups die of indigestion than starvation. And we've always been very focused on exactly what we have to do to survive as a company. I worked at a company in the early 2000s that got $350 million in venture capital, and then one day didn't exist anymore. And it's very important to me to build a company that I want to do as much as I possibly can to build the products that our customers want, to do the interesting things like hold this kind of conference, which, by the way, wasn't cheap. But I want to do it in a way that allows me to continue paying all of our developers next week. And for us, that's meant focus. We're now finally at a scale where we can begin to do maybe 2 things at once. We can both walk and chew gum, things like that. So we're absolutely looking at investing in the hosted service. The big question is, how many of our customers, what % of our customers are actually really interested in running on that in production? And for a long time, the answer was non-zero. It's always been there's somebody who's interested. The question is more, what %, right? How many? Is it enough to justify it yet? And we think we're getting to the point where there's getting to be enough. We hope to be able to invest in this in the near future. It's not going to be a fast process. Running what we have today in Puppet Enterprise in a hosted way is going to be, it would be a challenge. So we're going to have to do some technical changes, some architectural changes. And then obviously, we have an amazing team at delivering software in packaged form to our customers. It's a very different problem delivering software that's hosted and things like that. So it's pretty different. Will Puppet refine the process for VM provisioning with projects like Rev and Overt? I have no idea. This is not an area that I know that much about. There are 10 people in the audience who can absolutely answer that question, so if you go to the Puppet booth, I'm sure they can help. I know we are spending a lot of time working with partners and with customers on VM provisioning. I just don't know enough about those individual pieces of technology to say much about it. How much focus do we have for large-scale node environments, and what challenges are we having to overcome? One of my favorite questions when somebody asks how we deal with large scale is to ask what your definition of large scale is. Because I talk to people all the time who say things like, it's very slow. And I say, what do you mean? And they go, well, it's 20 seconds. And the person next door goes, well, it's 4 minutes. And those are very different. So I talk to some companies who say large scale, and they mean, literally, large scale to them is 100 nodes. Inconceivably large, we don't know how we're going to do that. But this question was, large scale is 40,000 nodes. Building a product that works just as well in a 100-node environment or in a 40,000-node environment is very, very difficult. Our average node deployment, from the studies we've done, somewhere between 250 nodes to 350 nodes is the average Puppet deployment out there in the market. So we're very, very good at that. And I think we're actually very good at 10 times that many nodes. We start to have trouble out of the box without any additional work at 100 times that many nodes. I feel like that's reasonable. It's not great. It's not the right answer, but I feel like it's reasonable. This is where not just the technology starts to break down, but where the user interfaces start to break down, right? Where your ability to actually get access to and even understand the amount of information that's in front of you starts to break down. All the applications have to be custom designed to have this kind of scale in the back end. It's not just about the technology, it's about the people and the culture and things like that. And we've got multiple examples of that working. This is an area where when this happens, when we talk to companies of this size, we tend to say, you're going to have to do a lot of this work yourself. We're absolutely willing to help. We're willing to work. We want to do everything we can to make sure our technology does work for them. But it's a rare enough event that we also don't lie to them because it's hard. It's different. So we do spend a lot of time on it. We do have a lot of important customers. Again, Google's going to be up talking next, and they have one of the largest Puppet deployments out there, which is significantly north of 40,000 nodes. But they're very, very good at running that environment at the same time. OK, I think we've got maybe one more question. With new Puppet versions arriving, are you willing to keep backwards compatibility with older versions? This is an interesting question, and it's a question that crosses both open source and Puppet Enterprise. And backward compatibility it's one of those kind of best-worst things. We know that everybody out there wants transparent backward compatibility. I want to be able to build a Puppet module that works today, works in 5 years, and would have worked 5 years ago. But everyone at the same time also wants new features and new changes and new modifications to the system. Where backward compatibility shows up, in essence, is it directly affects our ability to make change quickly. So the more backward compatible we have to be, the longer compatible we have to be, the slower we change. And this is really where the separation between what we're trying to do with our open source projects, which tend to have less backward compatibility, tend to move much more quickly, tend to have a lot of new interesting things in them, and as a result, tend to break a little more often, gets separated from our commercial product where we have much better guarantees about backward compatibility. Right now, we're looking at about 2 years. I believe this is, don't write this down. We have a new head of engineering who joined us about 6 months ago, and a big part of what he's doing is defining all the how long can we really afford to manage backward compatibility. Because if you were to look at our build process right now and the tests we have to go through to build one single package across, did you see all the platforms that Nigel talked about that we run on, right? So we have to get Puppet working against all those systems, test it against all the versions going backwards. So we work hard on it, but I think 2 years is about the best you're going to get right now. And I think that's it for time. So thank you very much.